friends, it is that time of the year. She's looking a bit puffy and a bit tired today. This eye has a major fucking bag under it, but we're just gonna roll with it because no manic washer was getting rid of it, and I got to give you guys the podcast. So I'm giving you guys the podcast. You're getting it in the middle of December, so we are so close to Christmas, which excites the shit out of me. I am recording this at the end of November though, because like I said in a previous episode, I am taking 6 weeks off over December and January, and so what that means is I'm on a little bit of a sprint to get all my work done by November 30th, so that on the morning of December 1st, this bitch is baking pancakes and she is becoming a housewife and like struggling with her dogs that can never leave her alone. If you're watching the video, look at Butter right now. I mean, and Jelly's there too, but like, look at Butter. He's got to have his head. It's like on my arm, like needs to be touching me at all times. But Jelly, stop licking me. Okay. Anyway, today's episode is a really good one. I sent an email out on a really similar, very, very similar topic, and I'm going to kind of use the same story in this middle of the year. So most of you probably don't remember it, and most of you, and some of you maybe didn't even get the email. But basically, my fiance and I spent some time apart, and I'm going to go into why we did this, the benefit of it, and whatnot. And let this serve as a big permission slip for you, especially if you're feeling a little bit claustrophobic this time of the year, or you really just feel like you see Butter right now, just like on top of Jelly. Or if you really need a reset, then I would listen very, very closely. And as usual, if you're not on my email list, please get on my email list because I've been making a really concerted effort to be able to send you guys more juice through emails. And I only see myself next year sending more of the kind of behind the scenes vibes and like personal emails and whatnot, rather than relying on you seeing my Instagram stories that last 24 hours, because let's be honest, most of us don't see them. Or, like the amount of times I will randomly see someone's post. I'm like, who the fuck is this? And I'm like, wait, I follow this person. I didn't even see their stuff and I love their content. So we just want to stop fighting with the algorithm and we want to be getting off our phones. And so hence I love sending you guys emails because it's an opportunity to read something on a big screen. It's a lot better for your eyes. You can make a cup of tea. You can make it this whole beautiful experience for yourself rather than, scrolling through Instagram and you're not even retaining what I'm trying to educate you on. And I know that you guys are actually wanting to learn. So if you're wanting to learn, it's like get off your phone because it's not being done there and get on your laptop and make it more of like a conscious task of reading the email. So where I wrote you this email from and where I kind of was having this, where I was storytelling it from was this hotel that I was staying at in Paris, this beautiful little quaint boutique hotel. Actually won't stay there again because the service was shit. But anyway, that's another story. And I was sitting there and I had 4 days by myself in Paris. So if you guys remember, for those of you that were following me, my fiance and I did a big marketing trip in the middle of the year. We went to Paris and Greece and Venice and, oh my God, where else? Did we go to Rome? I can't remember. We went to a bunch of different places and we did it for a marketing trip. We did it for the launch of the Meta Money Bundle, and the Meta Money Bundle for any new people are that bundle is Be a Lover Not a Mother and Magic Money and Manifestation Level 2. It's actually not being done again. So if you hear me say in a past episode, you can just go and look for MM2 or Be a Lover Not a Mother. We're not doing it next year. It was just kind of like a little pop-up thing. We did it for 2 years. So anyway, we were doing it for the launch of that and also just getting a bunch of content because we love being able to just travel, bulk, get content, and then be able to use it for months rather than like constantly needing to get new content because that can feel like a bit of a drag, and also just this constant unconscious stress. So anyway, so this episode is not necessarily like a massive learning episode. It's more of like a storytelling, but in the story, there's a lot of learning. So you might want to like go on a walk as you listen to this, or you can be making dinner. It's not going to be a really heavy episode, which is actually really nice. I've purposely made the episodes towards the end of December, like now and the next one, less heavy because I know that we're all a little bit distracted. So I just want you guys to get what you need and not feel like you're missing out because you're focused on something else. Oh, hi, ma'am. Okay. So to kind of set the scene for you guys, we are inseparable. If you don't already know this, my fiance and I are absolutely inseparable. And sometimes it actually annoys us how much we love each other, because it can be distracting, it can be all consuming, and it can mean that we don't have time alone. And we are people that actually really, really benefit with alone time, but we love each other so much that we had to really practice being disciplined with having conscious alone time because otherwise we would never actually do it, right? So we're not just roommates or best friends. We are very deeply in love And that can mean that we can be highly distracted and obsessed with like every single inch of each other. So we find it hard not to be together because we miss each other so much. I'm talking like 3 hours apart, we miss each other. And I did an episode on codependency. Let me quickly summarize. There is a difference between healthy codependency and unhealthy codependency. When you are in a loving relationship with somebody, and just an FYI, like children are codependent on their parents, right? We are all codependent beings. We are actually dependent on our relationships in order to get a sense of safety, connection, community. We are primal animals. I think sometimes we all forget that. We think we're like some entitled like beings. We're animals, right? We are mammals. And so what's important to understand is that there is healthy codependency and this unhealthy codependency. So unhealthy codependency is like your nervous system goes off, right? You go into a state of unsafety when you are not with that person. You need that person to validate you all the time, to tell you what you need to hear. You need to be around them all the time because otherwise you'd feel like, like you go into an anxious spiral or you go anxious and then avoidant. Basically, if you're not with them and whatnot, then you go into a sense of unsafety. So you are dependent on their validation, their love, their acceptance, their approval in order to feel safe enough, loved, etc. in yourself. Right? That's unhealthy codependency, which you don't want. Healthy codependency, and it's not even really codependency, it just can look like codependency. And we all know what codependency, we like know the word. Healthy codependency has a lot of clients and they're like, is it bad that we want to spend time together all the time? I'm like, no, the two of you are in love, right? It's so beautiful when you're in that kind of relationship, which really can feel quite few and far between, where you are literally inseparable and you don't get sick of each other. That is not codependency. That is intense, intense love, right? And you are, yes, dependent on the other person in the sense that like because you love them so much. But like in my situation with my fiance, I am not dependent on him for validation, for acceptance, for approval, etc. He could be like, no, I don't approve. And I'm like, cool, like nothing happens to my body. So I love him so much. He loves me so much. And we can seem like we're codependent if you don't know what healthy codependency is, like if you don't actually know what codependency truly is, basically. But being this in love with somebody isn't codependent. I want to make that really clear because that is something that I think a lot of people these days get really confused about or disheartened about, and they start over analyzing it, which really isn't good because, like I spoke about with whatever episode I did where I was like, oh, it was the episode about being in a real relationship. My concern is that everyone on Instagram, all these like experts on Instagram, they shit on like codependency and codependent relationships, and they don't clearly define the difference between someone that's really in love and someone that's just inseparable in an unhealthy way. So then people that are really in love and inseparable in a fine way, they think they're inseparable and it's a bad thing when it's actually not, right? So I wanted to just quickly do that little nuance for you guys because that is really important because I want to make sure that I give you context on that and not just make everybody think that you have to be in this perfect fucking relationship. Don't overanalyze, don't over communicate. We're all good, right? You're human. You're human. So what was I saying? So yeah, we find it really hard not to be together because we miss each other so much. And for somebody, me, that loves alone time, it was a really bizarre thing I began to experience when we first started dating. It was this push and pull of wanting alone time, but like as soon as I had it, I just wanted him. And you know what? I used to be the person that was like, oh, I could never spend all day with the guy that I'm with. Like, I could never do that. I would see couples and like hear about couples that were inseparable. And I'm like, God, I could never do that. I love my alone time, right? Now, obviously, here we are, right? It obviously goes to show how fucking in love we are. And this is also why it's so important to understand that, yes, you might say now, if you're single, oh, I could never imagine X, Y, and Z. But when you are with the right person, often your expectations or what you thought would happen, they don't happen, right? So I'll give you another example. You know those couples that are like, baby, baby, babe, this, that, honey. But I used to be like, ew, gag, vomit. I'm nauseous. Now, if I call him by his name, he's like, why are you calling me by my name? He like does not like it. And if he calls me by my name, I'm like, am I in trouble? Like, what's happening? So when it comes to work, sometimes I will call him by his name, and every time he just kind of like shivers a little bit. He's like, what the fuck? We are nicknamers. And not in like a real, I mean, some of you might think it's gross. I used to think it was gross, but yeah, we do call each other baby and babe and honey and sweetheart. And he calls me sweetheart. And like, and in that like southern, oh, like that southern accent when a man's like sweetheart, I'm like, oh my, like, literal shivers. Anyway, that's an American southern accent thing that you want to get around. Anyway, so it's really important that what you think that you might expect in a relationship or what you want or don't want could actually be really different when you're with the person that you deeply, deeply love. Anywho, so something that I used to do a lot before I met him was travel alone. I loved it. As a really deeply rooted Sagittarius, I feel like I sometimes, quote unquote, find myself when I'm traveling. It's this feeling of just being reactivated, coming home to myself. I feel ignited, creative, and me. And what's been really beautiful that I mentioned to you guys on another episode recently is I have found so much expansion recently in actually being at home, which was something that I used to struggle with for a long time and that I never really could feel expanded being at home. But now I feel so expanded, and I have kind of for the last couple of years. It was something that I really started to sink into when I was living in New York. And now I can also feel really expanded and ignited being at home. But of course, we can all agree that something happens when you're traveling. It's that change of scenery, that change of environment that really just gets your blood pumping and your creative energy flowing, right? So like I said, I'm currently in a season where I'm feeling really expanded and being at home and doing less rather than doing more. But I've been, like when I was writing this email to you guys, when I was in Paris alone without him, I've been having this kind of like intense calling for about 4 months before this trip that I'm talking about, where I was like, I need to be alone in Europe. I just need to be alone. And he knew this. We'd spoken about it. And we'd spoken about whether I want to just go on this marketing trip alone, but like two things. One, he makes travel so enjoyable and easy for me. And like I remember the intense amount of tears that would be shed from the stress of trying to do it all by myself and just, canceled flights and missing bags when I was alone. And then second thing is he's really good at taking content. So it was like, wait, the point of this trip is doing that. I need to do that, right? So actually, funnily enough, when we were catching our flight from Paris to Santorini at the start of our trip, our plane was at the exact opposite gate to a gate that I quite literally had a meltdown 3 years prior. So, nearly exactly 3 years ago, about 1 week prior to 3 years ago, I was getting on a plane from Paris to Nice and bawling my eyes out because I nearly missed the flight as my Uber driver took me to the wrong terminal and the airport was absolute fucking chaos. If you know Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, it's a mess. I texted my best friend saying, I'm done traveling alone. I'm traveling with a man from now on. I remember the seat that I was in. I remember the outfit that I was wearing. Like I kept like that was a pivotal moment. But you know what's funny is like I didn't really know it was a pivotal moment at the time. Like I kind of did. I felt that it was really pivotal and I'd made this like really big decision for myself. Like from now on, I'm traveling with a fucking man. Now, I still traveled a bit more after that by myself, but it was this kind of declaration to the universe of like, this is what's happening from now on. I'm fucking done with dealing with this shit alone. And then 3 years later, right, I am literally on the gate exactly opposite with my man. And we were tight with our bags again. And actually, my bag didn't end up coming, but which was really funny given what happened last time. Because last time when I was flying to Nice, my bag didn't arrive either because I nearly missed my flight and they didn't push the bag through and like whatever, whatever. So his bag arrived in Santorini, but my bag didn't arrive in Santorini. And it was beautiful because there was no meltdown because his like grounded masculine energy, he knew exactly what to do with me in these situations to reduce the tears for himself and for me, but also for him. He's learned from previous experiences what to do and what not to do when these things happen, because no matter whether I'm like, I know it'll be fine, it will come the next day, like it doesn't matter, I need my fucking bag. And it's just the stress of like, oh, especially when you're on this tight trip and like one day is half of the trip in Santorini. Anyway, so it was just a really interesting, uncanny kind of coincidence, right? So obviously I kept traveling solo a little bit, but the point is that travel with my fiance is such a breeze. He does everything. And I just kind of sit back and relax. And, when I was in Paris writing this email, it allowed, and I'm by myself, right? Being by myself for a few days really allowed me to also see just how much he does in the smallest things that make my life easier. Because, you get used to these things, then you don't actually have that intense gratitude for it, right? But whether it's driving the car to the hotel or to the Airbnb or to the resort, or booking the Uber, or finding our barrage carousel, or dealing with, a lost bag, or just checking in for the fucking flight, right? Sometimes I forget, or I did. Now it was like I needed kind of like a moment to just, I hadn't had 4 days to myself in a different time zone in quite a while, where we weren't on top of each other, basically, whether it's physically or energetically. And having that kind of time difference is great because he's waking up in like the mid afternoon, right? Or like 2 p.m. He's like waking up, like 2 p.m. Paris time, he's waking up. So it actually gives me a lot of time where I am alone with myself, with my energy, with my thoughts. And it allows me to just sink in and receive everything that I have gotten in the prior months that maybe I haven't really been able to actually sink in and get, right? And this is why I just love time alone, and why I'm a massive advocate for traveling a little bit alone, even if you're in a relationship, because of like everything I'm going to go through. So, anyway, I kind of forgot until this moment of how much I don't have to do anymore because he does it. So I decided from a really empowered place that I wanted him to come on the trip, because remember I was saying before I was kind of umming and ahhing about it. So I did want him to come on the trip. He did come on the trip. But what we would do is you would spend time apart. So we organized it where basically when he was actually physically with me there on the trip, I would let him work during the days and not make him come and like do everything with me and explore and, all the fun things. So I had, solo meals. I spent hours sitting alone in cafes working, whether it was at the hotel or whether it was, at a cafe or whatever. I went out to dinner with friends. And then I spent 4 days alone in Paris, and it was fucking bliss. I'm telling you. It was hard at the start, it always is, because you miss him. Like I missed him. And you have to kind of go through that detox period in a way. But it's bliss because I knew, or it was bliss because I knew how vital that alone time was for everyone, right? For me, for him, and for our relationship. There's three parties involved, right? And sorry, I got like an itchy nose if you're watching the video. Something that I see so much, and I'm sure that you have too, is people quote unquote losing themselves after being in a relationship for a while. They stopped doing the things they loved to do when they were single. They missed their single life. They, revolve their world around the other person. And look, I get being deeply in love, but if you lose yourself, you also, this is really important, if you lose yourself, you also subconsciously create resentment towards yourself, the relationship, and very possibly your partner, which isn't exactly ideal. So, prioritizing your relationship and the health and the longevity of your relationship also means prioritizing yourself. And my fiance and I, whilst we, missed each other so much when we spent that time apart, or when we spent any time apart, we also fucking love it. It's kind of a kink. It's kind of this weird kink of like, we hate it, but we love it. Like, because we hate it, we then love it, right? It's like we get off on how much we miss each other. And sometimes I just think that if people overheard our conversations, most of them would think we're a little bit fucked up. But when you understand a healthy relationship, these conversations bring so much lightness. So like an example of a conversation is, I don't want to talk to you. Like we'll be on a plane and we'll be like, I don't want to talk to you for these 2 hours. Like, don't touch me, don't talk to me, just leave me alone. And then the other person will be like, amazing, great. And I swear to God, sometimes people must be like, are these people okay? Are they in a fight? And we're like, no, this is how we actually show love and respect for each other's time and whatnot. It's like, don't talk to me. I'll sometimes have an evening, he'll be like, what are you doing tonight? Or like, what do you want to do tonight? I'm like, I actually don't want to talk to you tonight. Like, I just want to have me time. I don't want to talk. I don't want to touch. Like, I don't want to watch TV with you. I got to do me. And he's like, oh my God, I'm obsessed. Love it. Yep, done. And we do this really often. And it's such a beautiful way to create safety in voicing your needs, right? Because what we're doing is we're voicing a need. And a lot of us don't feel safe or confident in relationships to voice any needs, whether it's a need of just having a night alone, or whether it's a need of, I don't want to talk to you for X amount of hours. Or it could be anything. It could be a need of like, I want you to say I love you more. It could be literally anything, really small or really big. And how many of you don't voice it? because you're afraid of them rejecting you. You're afraid of what they're going to think of you. You're afraid of being belittled, shamed, etc. Like, I could go on this for hours, but let me just say this. I have a new free masterclass that's out, and it is titled How to Have Him Lead You. And in one of the emails, I think it's one of the emails, and I think I also mentioned it in the masterclass as well, but it's definitely one of the emails because I wrote it the other night. In one of the emails, I talk about how sometimes one of the hardest things that you can do is force the other person to be in integrity. I don't want to like go down this tangent because I want to keep it on the topic of this episode, but I think it's email number 7 that you will get once you join the free masterclass. Like, you join the free masterclass, you'll be able to, it's so fucking good. You'll listen to everything, you'll watch everything, blah, blah, blah. And then there are emails where I continue to talk about different things because you know me, I could talk for like 5 hours on this topic, or actually longer. And so I couldn't fit it all into the masterclass. So I actually ended up putting it into a bunch of emails for you guys. And in one of these emails, it really discusses the importance of like ensuring that your partner is in integrity and is not crossing your boundaries, and then you allowing them to cross your boundaries, therefore causing resentment towards them. And you're also causing resentment to yourself. Like, if you know you have a need and you keep not voicing it, let me tell you, you might think you're trying to avoid pain right now, but in 5 years' time, when that shit eventually comes up, it could now be irreparable to the relationship because you festered that shit and it has bubbled underneath you and gone so deep where you have had that in you for 5 years. That can be really hard to reverse. So it's that hard thing sometimes, and in every relationship, and we have this in our relationship where it can feel so hard to bring something up and to actually like follow through with it now, but you do it now to reduce having to do it in 5 years' time and the issue never actually being able to be repaired because it's gone on for way too long and like things are just too fucked by that point, if that makes sense, right? So when you are both allowing yourself to say, yeah, I miss you, but I also don't. Like, yeah, I want to spend time with you, but I also want to spend time alone. And it's this combination of you love them and you want to spend time with them, but you also love you and you also want to give yourself the space and the needs that you know that you need in order to thrive. This to me is gold. It really is. The ability to be like, I love you, but I love you and I miss you, but I also don't miss you. And I'm also having the best time alone. I'm also loving this. What this does, being able to have this kind of dialogue and safety in a relationship, it's great for him, it's great for you, or if you're a man listening to this, it's great for you, it's great for her. This, like, the space that you have now because you're allowing yourself to have time apart, whether it's energetically or physically, it allows for more. The space allows us to return our energy back to ourselves. It allows us to realign so that we can then be our best selves in our relationship. It allows us to miss each other and then increase our chemistry and polarity and like downright obsession, right? Space allows more. So some of you might want to re-listen to this episode. I've got some more things to go, but I wrote this really beautiful journal prompt, not journal prompt, like journal article, journal entry. I wrote this beautiful journal entry when I was alone having a date by myself in Venice. I was eating the best gluten-free pesto pasta. I had a beautiful view, and my fiance actually had broken his foot. So he was in the hotel room, and also he didn't want to come out. And I was like, I'm having a night alone. Like, I'm not going to have my Venice experience be less than what I would like because I'm thinking that I have to stay with you and be with you, if that makes sense. And really important, I wasn't being a bitch by being like, well, I'm leaving, like, fuck you, you're staying here. It was, we mutually wanted to do different things. He wanted to just chill in the hotel room and order room service. He was exhausted. I was like, no, I have a lot of energy. I am a generator. He is a reflector. And so for him, he wanted to do one thing and I didn't want to do that thing. So instead of then doing the thing that I didn't want to do, and I didn't need to do that, right? Like, there was no reason why I needed to please him and kind of like put him first, because there's sometimes moments, this is called being in a relationship. There's sometimes moments where actually your needs have to go on the back burner for a second and he gets what he wants. That's just called a relationship. But in this moment, that wasn't necessary. So I went on a date by myself in Venice and I wrote a really beautiful journal entry and I want to share it with you guys. So yeah, I'm going to read it from my journal, and I hope this provides you guys a little bit of inspiration as well. Those of you that are interested, Embodiment of Dating is the masterclass that I wish I had when I was going through that hard time of just figuring out dating, right? I wanted to feel good about men. I wanted to feel good and have a strong and confident mindset about the dating world, which I know a lot of us do not have these days. I hear it all the time. Literally, the lady at the nursery was telling me about it the other day. We don't have a good mindset about dating and we need help. I mean, I know I'm in a relationship, but I needed help. And this was the masterclass that I seriously wish that I had. I know it can seem like it's a dry fucking desert out there, but so much of it is in the way that we show up in it. I'm not gonna lie, modern dating is hard. Let's not beat around the bush. And the Embodiment of Dating masterclass is going to help you show up in a way that you are proud of, where you aren't leaking your energy everywhere, and in a way that actually gets you results with good men, not being an anxious or avoidant mess. So for those of you that actually want to have good results with dating, and you are dating masculine men that lead you, that chase you, that devour you, that want you, you need to get the Embodiment of Dating masterclass, because I just make it easy for you in how to be feminine in dating, especially a strong feminine woman in dating. You need to do the Embodiment of Dating masterclass. Additionally, if you are a woman that is dating and you make a lot of money, and you probably make either the same amount as him, if not more, then I would also check out my Feminine Female Breadwinner program, because that would also be really helpful for you. And for those of you in a relationship where you do make a good chunk of money or more, or even just make any money, if you feel like money sometimes becomes a bit of a in the relationship, let's not let it be a in the relationship, because it's fucking money. So also the Feminine Female Breadwinner would be a really great option for you. Okay, let's dive in. So there's truly nothing wrong with wanting alone time. There's nothing wrong with wanting space. There's nothing wrong with wanting some time. I'm grateful that I'm in the kind of relationship where I can say I need a few days of me time and I'll go do me. I'm grateful that I'm in a relationship where I can do this, where I feel safe to even say I need 2 weeks to myself. It's funny that so many people struggle to just sit at a cafe alone and enjoy their own company. And even I had to get comfortable again doing that, because being in a relationship meant that I changed my comfort zone and eating alone became something that I didn't do very much anymore. So I had to push myself to do it again. I had to be committed to me and staying true to me. And God, it feels good. It feels so good to sit here in peace, to not have to talk to anyone, to hear my own thoughts, to hear no thoughts, to breathe, to just soak in my surroundings. It's like time slows down. I can do me. I can focus on my experience. I can be selfish. I can disconnect and be in my own world. It's peaceful. It's often why so many people get agitated in relationships, because they lose their sense of self if they're not careful. I love the silence in my mind. I worked hard to get to a point where I have no negative thoughts, where I can have no thoughts, and I forget to enjoy them. I often don't have an extended period of time anymore where I just get to do me. This is so wholesome. I'm so proud of me. I'm so proud of this dinner. I'm so proud of this space and doing what can feel really hard because of how much I love being around him and how I can turn my mind off when he's looking after me. But it feels so good to look after myself, to just tend to my own needs and not be influenced by anyone else's energy or calendar. Most of us are all or nothing. We're fully in the relationship, or the moment we're having a slight freak out, we break up. The dysregulation of our nervous system means that we don't allow ourselves to have the ideal situation, where maybe you take 2 weeks to be to yourself, but you still can stay in the relationship. Things don't need to be black and white. It doesn't need to be all or nothing. I get to co-create the relationship of my dreams. I get to be the version of myself that I desire, and I get to have the life that I desire. You get to have you time without it meaning anything negative. I hope that you guys love that. I wrote it for myself. I wrote it like truly from my heart. In that moment, I just quickly jotted it down on my phone when I was sitting there eating the best pesto pasta ever. And I feel like this is so important, because so many of us feel like if we need a break, oh my God, we have to break up. If we are feeling agitated in our relationship, if we are feeling like, oh my God, I need some fucking breathing room, it's some kind of sign that we're not meant to be together. No, you are human. You are going to have moments where you need fucking space. That does not mean anything negative about the relationship. It could have nothing to do with the relationship. It could be because of work stress and you're actually taking it out and you're blaming it on the relationship when it's not, right? So this is again another permission piece for you to not be perfect, but for you to actually just be human. Right. So these days that I had in Paris, these 4 days to myself, they allowed me to ground even more strongly into who I am, who I want to be, and where I want to go, because I had that mental and energetic space where I just got to be alone to reconnect with me. Silence is something that I love. And silence is such a blessing and not something that you need to be afraid of. I meant it when I said I have no thoughts. I can sit and have absolutely no thoughts running through my head. That took me a hot second to get to, right? I used to have a lot of negative thoughts running through my head. But I can honestly say, hand on heart, I don't have negative thoughts running through my head. Like, sure, I'm thinking about things if I'm thinking about things, but I can also choose to think about nothing. And then I'll think about nothing. The only time that something negative will be in my head is if somebody else has put a thought into my head and I'm like, oh, that's not mine. Get rid of that. And then it's gone. Right. And it will be like, I'll hear it as though somebody else has said it. And then I'll just be like, oh no. And then it's gone. But I don't say negative things to myself anymore, which is something that just brings so much inner peace and like calibration for your nervous system. So, ladies and gentlemen that are listening, don't be afraid of being alone. Don't be afraid of what other people are going to think when you are sitting alone in a cafe or having dinner by yourself. Most people are actually just fucking jealous because they wish they could do that. They are mostly in awe that you have the confidence to do that. They're not thinking, oh, why is she alone? They're like, wow, I want to go be alone, right? Maybe a 16-year-old is like, oh, why is she alone? No one likes her. But yeah, well, it's a 16-year-old. But an adult looking at another adult is probably more jealous. If they're looking at you, they're not actually belittling you or thinking anything less of you. And even if they were, who the fuck cares? You don't know them. You're having a great time doing you. Because, like I said, there is so much beauty and there is so much expansiveness that comes from being alone and in your own energy and not being influenced by anybody else's energy, right? It is such an art to love your life without needing anybody else to be next to you. And it really does allow you to be more grateful then for the special people in your life, because they are, like I say, they are then your cherry on top of your already gluten-free, dairy-free cupcake, your gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free cupcake, vanilla sugar-free. That cupcake is what you have built for your life yourself. And then everything else in that person is the cherry on top. You're not dependent on them, right? No, we are not alone. Sorry, no, we are not meant to be alone forever as humans. We need connection for happiness, but we all need to be aware that we live in a world of hyper connection, which becomes very draining and very energy sucking, right? And the hyper connection is like the Instagram, the Facebook, the Telegram, the text messages. Like, it's this constant influx of communication. Remember that back in the day, and what our bodies and our minds are actually used to, right? Even though we've had communication like text for a hot second, in the whole grand scheme of things of human life, it's been like a blip of time. Okay. Think about it. Back in the day, you would only be having connection and conversation with people in a focused, conscious way, right? You're sitting at the dinner table and you're having conversation with them, or you see them you see them in the village and you have a conversation with them, and then you're alone. But the reality is now that doesn't happen. When you're quote unquote alone in your house, you're also bombarded by your mobile phone, right? So we've lost that conscious connection. And like, I don't want to use the word conscious in like a conscious, I mean like focus. Let's say focused connection, right? We've lost focused, intentional connection. And now we have this hyper connection, which can be really energetically draining. And it can actually kind of make you feel like you just want to retreat. Like, who else has so many messages on their phone they haven't yet replied to? Because it just feels like, I just can't. By the end of the workday, you've been dealing with so many people all day. You've been bombarded all day. You've been on technology all day. You're like, get that fucking phone away from me, right? We can lose ourselves and others. Sorry, we can lose ourselves in others and society if we're not careful. And that is why it's so important when you have that alone time, you're able So just feel like you again. You come back to you. You realign your energy. I did an episode kind of on this a while ago when I was living in New York, but if you just feel like you're leaking a lot of your energy and you've just kind of like, you don't feel like you anymore, my biggest recommendation is not talking to anybody for like 3 or 4 days if possible. If not, just do 2, right? A weekend. Don't talk to anyone. Don't see anyone. Don't text anyone. Don't phone anyone. You need to be only in your energy fields. When you are in so many different energy fields from different people, you take parts of that. You leak part of your energy. You take part of their energy, right? And that's why you then eventually start to feel like, oh, I don't feel like me. Or I just feel really heavy, or I just don't feel inspired, or I just don't feel connected to myself. And that's obviously if you usually feel connected to yourself, inspired, you feel like you know yourself, and you're starting to like not really feel like you 100%. It's probably because of like this hyper connected world that we live in, right? So, like the last thing that I will say, last thing is, and then I have a nugget for you, like a one sentence thing that I want you to remember as like the full wrap up takeaway from today. When you don't have you time, you don't know what you truly need in your relationship. You don't know you so well that you can ensure your needs, desires, and dreams are being fulfilled by your lover. So, all in all, the more that you know you, the more your relationship will fulfill you. I feel like today's episode was so deep and philosophical, and I really, really hope that you guys enjoyed it. I tried to keep it on the shorter side for you because it is that busy time of year. I hope that you loved my cozy wool festive sweater if you're watching the video version. Do not forget the New Year's Eve bundle is open right now. It's $133. It is jam packed with every single thing that I did to manifest everything that I manifested in my life in 1 year last year. I purposely didn't re record it because I was like, I'm sorry, the energy from last year and what happened in my life was too good to replace. I cannot replicate that shit. So I kept it from last year. It is absolute gold. You have a quantum leaping manifestation practice in there as well that I guide you through. And the beautiful thing is that it was recorded live the first time. So you really have that live energy from everyone, which is really fun. It is a Christmas vibe. There are some Christmas decorations in the background. And I showed you the one thing, oh, it's really kind of like 2 things that I did where in 22 days, I then manifested meeting my fiance on that chairlift skiing, and the rest is history. So whether you're wanting to call in your person, whether you're wanting to just ensure that 2024 is like ridiculous in terms of what you are manifesting, I would highly recommend getting the New Year's Eve bundle. I do everything in the New Year's Eve bundle year after year, and I like really did this all in one lump sum that first year, which then is why I made that bundle, because I was like, holy shit, I just tried it. I sat there at the end of 2022. And I was like, all right, this is my plan. Let's just see what happens. If I go all in with XYZ ABC things, let's see what happens. 22 days later, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, we'll marry you. So even if you are not new to manifestation, this actually isn't something that I would recommend doing if you're new to manifestation, because you kind of know those basic concepts. You can get MMM level 1 if you're new to manifestation. This is something for those of you that you know the basics of manifestation and you are wanting to just have like everything delivered to you in a perfect Tiffany bow in like a perfect little box, where you want to basically be told, do these 5 things and you will manifest crazy shit in the next 12 months. If you want that, the New Year's Eve bundle is for you. All right, I will see you guys in the next episode. If you don't get to listen to the next episode before Christmas, I hope that you have a lovely Christmas or a lovely Hanukkah or a lovely holiday season. I know it can be really hard for some of you if you are alone as well. If you scroll down in my Instagram, I have some really great posts from Christmas last year on what to do if you are alone over the Christmas period. I might actually also plan to just repost them. I will put that in my calendar so I can make sure I remember. I'll repost them on my stories so that you guys can get them if you need them, because I've had a few really rough years being alone around Christmas time, and I know how hard it is. So there's some really great resources for you guys on my Instagram if you need it. All right, I will see you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much for being here, and have a lovely rest of your day.